to see you, folks. This is the CHQ building right here. It's an old warehouse, being all modernised into lovely shops right now. And also the Epic Museum, which I'll talk to you about in just a little bit when we start the show. Welcome, everybody. Let's see who's on. Cynthia, how you doing? Audrey, Roger, Karen, Doreen, Linda, Gail from Newmarket, Ontario. Karen, how are you, Karen? Noreen from Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Kay, Diane from Florida. Cindy, Karen, Anita from Latvia. Paddy, Maikas, VT, Doreen, Mary S. Welcome, everybody, folks. Good to see you all. We're starting our tour in a little under 3 minutes. And a little over 3 minutes. We're going to show you around the Dublin Docklands today and Grand Canal Dock, Grand Canal Square. It's the big area of finance and big tech here in Dublin. This is a Lewis stop right here I'm showing you. Hope you are feeling better. Thanks, Sharon. Still got a little bit of a head cold, but listen, could be a lot worse. I was feeling a lot worse than that last week, so I had no energy, but now I've recovered my energy, so to speak. Paddy, welcome. Jennifer W, Jeanine, Ellen, Nancy, Sharon, welcome everybody. Good to see you all. This is the Lewis, the tram system that runs through Dublin. North, east, west and south. North, south, east, west. Very busy. They come every 5 minutes. Sometimes every 3 minutes. So it's a really good system here in Dublin. Transportation system. Dublin transportation is pretty good overall, as regards buses and trams, quite frequent. As I say, it is pretty large city today. There's over 1 million people in Dublin, probably a lot more than 1 million. It's probably closer to 1.5 million in Dublin. Lovely day today as well, folks. The sun is shining, which is really nice. Blue skies, which is a bonus because we're going to be walking along the beautiful River Liffey, taking in some of the bridges and, as I say, some of the great buildings along the Dublin Docklands and Grand Canal Square and Grand Canal Dock. So we're going to be seeing it in beautiful light. So it will be nice. Got a little over a minute before we start our tour. Hilary, how you doing? Shelley, Linda, Noreen, Phil, Sandra, Stephen, Joni, Terry H, Mary, Sheila, Marty. Welcome everybody, folks. I hope I didn't miss anybody. Margie, Patty, Cynthia, Shelley. How are you, Shelley? Pretty day, Cynthia. Yes, it is. Beautiful day. Now, it's a little windier around these parts because we're beside the Liffey. But it's a little cooler than it would be in the heart of the city, surrounded by all the buildings. Here it's a little bit open, so it's less warm. Catherine, how are you? Good to see you. Kim, Poppy, how are you? Liz, welcome everybody, folks. Margie, how are you? Good to see everybody here in the Dublin Docklands, also known as the IFSC, the International Financial Services Centre. And this area of Dublin, the Dublin Docklands, it's known for all the big financial companies, banking institutions from throughout the world. They're all housed here, including also the big tech companies and lots of others as well. Sorry, I was just getting a phone call in there. I can't believe it. But also the big accounting companies and also the big insurance companies are all around here as well. So, folks, welcome to the Dublin Docklands tour. And I hope you're all well. Lovely day in Dublin, as I say. We're going to start right now. My name is Dave. You haven't been on my shows before. But right here, you have the Czech building. It's an old warehouse. It's over 200 years old, this building right here. Formerly, as I say, it was an old warehouse that would have stocked all your, or warehoused all your spirits and your whiskey, from your whiskies to your brandies to your wine, tobacco, all that kind of stuff. As the boats would have come up here to this part of the Liffey, the cargo boats, and then they would have stocked this warehouse full of all them spirits and goods and what have you. But today, this building is full of really unique shops, stores, if you like, and also EPIC. Now, EPIC stands for Every Person is Connected. This is one of the great museums here in Dublin, and it tells the story of Irish emigration. So it's the Irish Emigration Museum. It is absolutely fabulous. It is so good to this place that it was awarded the top tourist attraction in all of Europe by the World Travel Awards in 2019, 2020, and 2021. So it really is a fantastic experience. There's like 20 different rooms within the museum, and each room tells a different story of Irish folk, Irish emigration, and so forth. It also tells the story, folks, of one of the saddest periods in all of Irish history, which was the Great Famine. There was nothing great about it, but it was so big, this famine in Ireland. The Great Hunger, or as people call it. It took place from 1845 to 1852. And during this period, or I should say before the period of the Irish famine, there was 8 million people living in Ireland. After the famine, there was only 5 million people living here. 1 million people died from starvation. Over 2 million emigrated. Well, they attempted to emigrate. Not all 2 million made it to the new world of the United States and Canada. That's where most of the people left to go to. They left on what was known as coffin ships, and I'm going to explain a little bit more to you about the coffin ships in just a little bit. But as I said before, it was a horrific period in Irish history. The famine was a blight on the potatoes. Most people were involved in agriculture at this time. Probably 95% or more of the whole country was involved in agriculture. And there were poor tenant farmers working on farms owned by landlords, mostly British landlords and so forth. In fact, on farms that their own ancestors used to own. And if they couldn't come up with the rent and so forth, they were thrown off their lands. But for most of these people, their sole source of nourishment and income was the potato. Because in a lot of cases, it's the only crop that they grew was a potato. And when this blight came upon the potatoes and destroyed the crop, people starved. They starved to death. So it was horrific. And also, as I said before, it was their only source of income as well, was the potato. So really is very, very sad in a lot of ways that this happened. Welcome, everyone's just joined us. There's some loud mouth. God almighty. Shouting out of a car. It's one thing I hate, is someone shouting out of a car when you're trying to get things done. It's just ridiculous. Anyway, so that's the story of the EPIC Museum here in Dublin, folks. If you ever are here, it is fabulous. I think it's like €15 to come in and see it, and it really is fabulous. It is an amazing experience. Now, we're going to move on, folks, and we're going to take you to this, tell you a little more about the Irish famine. As I said before the famine years, which took place between 1845 and 1852, there was, as I said before, thank you, there was 8 million people living in the country. After the famine, there was only 5 million. As I said before, 1 million people died from starvation. They starved to death, and over 2 million emigrated to places like the United States and Canada and the UK and so forth, but mostly North America. And they went on what was known as coffin ships. As I take you over here to the Sean O'Casey Bridge, named after one of Ireland's great playwrights. You may be familiar with some of his work, including The Plough and the Stars and Juno and the Paycock, just to mention a few. There's a boat in the Liffey right here. This is the River Liffey, folks. I'm on the Sean O'Casey Bridge. British genocide is correct, Jim, it was. And we're not going to get political and so forth, but if you want to read the history books, folks, that's exactly what it was. Now, what is amazing is that these people that left Ireland on what was known as coffin ships. I'm going to take you down to this particular ship right here. It's called the Jeanie Johnson. So let's walk down there. But while I'm walking down there, I'm going to tell you the story of these coffin ships. There was hundreds of these coffin ships, and they took people across to North America during the years of the famine, mostly between 1846 to 1850. In them years with the most, 1847 probably, and 1848 more than any other year. 1847 is known as Black 47. That's the year where we had so many deaths through starvation and so forth. Now, most of these ships, or all of these ships, were unsanitary. They would actually pack these people in to these ships and they'll be overcrowded. Everybody was down on the lower deck of these ships, cramped together. There was no sanity, and lots of people died from infections from other people, from starvation, from fever, and what have you, simply because they weren't allowed out on the deck up top. They were crammed in a horrible, filthy conditions. And as I say, it was taken 3 months to get across the water to the United States. Thank you, Paddy. Thank you, Karen. Appreciate it. So, I mean, these conditions it was with greedy boat owners, mostly absentee boat owners that were just in it for profits. They'll take the money, but there was no sanitary ships. There were filthy conditions, horrible, and as I say, everyone was kept on, way overcrowded. These boats were fit for probably about 250 people, and they'd have about 850 people on them. Now, what is amazing is that there was one ship that had no casualties. It went across the Atlantic Ocean 15 times during the famine years, and not once, where all the other ships had hundreds, if not thousands, of casualties going across to North America, going across the Atlantic Ocean. This particular one right here, the Jeannie Johnson, had 0 casualties in 15 trips across the Atlantic. It was owned by a man called John Donovan from Tralee in County Kerry. The boat was actually built in Quebec in Canada, and he bought it soon after it was bought. And he was a very, very good businessman, but a very ethical man as well. So not like all the other ships, this particular ship, the Jeannie Johnson, as you see here, which this is a replica of, he would have less people on these ships than was required, or that was the standard. So if it was only meant for 250 people, he'd have 200 people on it. He allowed all the people on the ship to get exercise every day and go up on deck instead of being sitting down. He had 2 doctors on each one of these crossings as well. He also had the captain of this ship was a very moral man as well, and made sure that all of the passengers were well taken care of and well fed and what have you. So they would have had top class food on here, doctors, and an absolutely fabulous captain. And as I say, they were allowed out on the deck. 15 times across the Atlantic Ocean during the famine years, not one casualty. Nobody died. And as I said before, remarkably, as Noreen says, every other ship had major casualties. Many, many, many people, thousands in fact, died across it. Now, what's also ironic, as we move down, we walk a little further down the River Liffey, what's also as amazing is that in I think it was 1857 or 1858, this was years after the famine, or probably close to a decade after the famine, this ship was going across the North Atlantic another time, and it got shipwrecked. It sunk. But just before it sunk, there happened to be a passing ship who collected all the survivors, all the passengers, and there was not one casualty. Everybody survived, even when the ship was sinking. They were just lucky enough there was another ship passing by that took all the passengers on board. How about that for history, folks, of the Jeannie Johnson? Now this, as I say, is a replica of the Jeannie Johnson. You can't really see it with the sun in my eyes here, but it is remarkable. It's beautiful. And there's a great, great tour, the tour of the Jeannie Johnson. It's one of the tall ships. This, as I say, was a replica. It was built, I think, in 1997 in Tralee in County Kerry. And just to look exactly like it would have looked at this museum, this tour you can go on, you can actually experience as if you were one of the passengers back in that time. They bring you down to the lower deck to show you the living conditions and the bedroom or the beds and what have you. They were all very, very nice, much nicer than all the other buildings. So I think it's a great story. Dorian, thank you so much. Diane, thank you so much. Welcome anyone who's just joined us. Good to see us all. We're here on the River Liffey here, folks, in the Dublin Docklands, known as the IFSC, the Dublin Docklands IFSC, which is the International Financial Services Centre here in Dublin. There's over 40,000 people are employed here in this area. All the big banks of the world. That bank you're looking at right there is Citibank. You might be able to see the sign on it. I'll just zoom in here a little bit. Citibank. All the big banks of the world are all here. The reason why they came here, I'm going to explain that a little later. But they're all here because of the very low corporate tax rate, the lowest in Europe at 12.5%. They all came here a couple of decades ago, 20 years ago or more. Some of them have come since. Thank you, Karen. Karen A and Karen S and Catherine. Thank you so much for the tip. I really appreciate it. Over 40,000 people work in this area. This is New Dublin, if you like, although it's in an old part of Dublin. Unfortunately, many of the old, beautiful buildings were around here were knocked down to be replaced by the modern buildings for all these big banking institutions, the big accounting companies of the world, PwC, all the big insurance companies, Accenture. They're all here, folks, in this area. There's also a large amount of apartment blocks around here as well. And these would not come cheap. Very, very expensive. You're talking about $3,000 a month for a 2-bedroom around here. Because most of these people are working in the banking sector. They're probably paid very well. And they're living right close to where they work. Now, they continue to build in this area. As I say, this area around 20, 25 years ago was kind of very reclusive. There was nothing going on here until all these big companies moved in and so forth with the low, and they just haven't stopped building since. The whole area of the Dublin Docklands was the brainchild of a man by the name of Harry Crosby, one of the big developers here of Dublin. We'll talk about him a little bit later on as well. Thank you, Audrey, for the tip. Appreciate it. Thank you so much, folks. That's the Spencer Hotel right there. It's full of hotels around here. Huge amount of apartment buildings and what have you. Now have a look at this beautiful bridge here, folks. This is the Samuel Beckett Bridge, named after the great Irish playwright Samuel Beckett, who won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1969. Known for some great works as Waiting for Godot and Endgame. And this man also, he lived in France for a good part of his life, in Paris and so forth. And he was also part of the French resistance movement to protect Jewish people and Jewish families during the Second World War. So he was a great man. He was also a brilliant sportsman as well, was Samuel Beckett. He went to Trinity University, Trinity College. You've probably seen the show, seen that. And they have like 50 sports teams within Trinity College. One of their teams is the cricket team. And Samuel Beckett was one of the greatest cricketers to ever play for Trinity College. Dublin University, as they call the sports teams. Now, this beautiful bridge, it's built in the shape of the harp, the Irish national emblem, or the Irish national symbol. And it was designed by the great Santiago Calatrava, one of the great designers of the world. He's designed some of the most iconic buildings in New York City. He also designed the Olympic Stadium in Athens, just to mention a few. He also designed further up the bridge, much further up the bridge, the James Joyce Bridge as well. Thank you, Dan. Appreciate it. So we're going to cross over the Samuel Beckett Bridge, or the Harp Bridge, as we also like to call it, as I say, in the shape of the Irish national symbol of the harp. And we're going to make our way over to the other side of... so we are on the north side right now of the Dublin Docklands. We're going to cross over Samuel Beckett Bridge. We'll be on the south side. This is one of 21 bridges that runs through the centre of Dublin City. And all of the bridges are named after a very famous Irish person. They used to be named after famous British military people mostly, but they all changed. All the names of bridges were changed when Ireland got its independence to reflect some of the great freedom fighters here of Ireland and some of the great political leaders of Ireland that fought for independence, and some of the great writers and playwrights like this one here. Samuel Beckett. This does retract, but very, very seldom. There's not many ships that come up further than here. So I think I've seen it once or twice before with this bridge retracted, but it does. Further down here, folks, which I'll show you in a little bit as well, you have the Dublin cargo port and the ferry port. Thank you, Mickey. Hi, Suzanne. Deborah, welcome. Everyone's just joined us. That's true, Karen. That's true. Anyway, it's the way it is. What can you do? Sorry, man. Okay, so we're going to go over the other side of the Dublin Docklands. You see in the distance there the Ferryman pub, the red brick right there. Absolutely fabulous pub, and obviously it's named after the ferryman. As I say, the ferry port is a little further down. Only about a kilometre away or less than that is the cargo port and the ferry port. Thank you, Hilary. Thank you, Noreen. And as I say, they would have frequented this red brick building that you see right there, folks, the Ferryman pub. The workers at the ferry port, hence the name, the Ferryman. There's about 3 bars within that one building. Really is a terrific bar. Really nice. As I'm going to cross the road here, we'll get an opportunity. Because it's at that time, folks, people are getting off work. So it's rather busy in these parts at the moment, because as I said before, over 40,000 people work in this area of Dublin, known as the Dublin Docklands. Now, one of the most famous buildings, modern buildings, I should say, over the River Liffey, is this one right here, folks. Excuse me. And this is the convention centre here in Dublin. Famous for its glass frontage, which lights up in the evening time, at night time. And you can see the reflection of the building in the River Liffey. Most of the time it's lit up in the Irish flag, the Irish tricolours. Also, sometimes all green for Ireland as well. And it's the only carbon neutral convention centre in the world. Designed and built by, was designed by Kevin Foley, an American architect. And once again, the brainchild of Harry Crosby, the developer who developed most of this area here of the Dublin Docklands in Dublin City. There's a great little floating restaurant right here. It's called the Killarna. And I've gone there many times. I run a meetup group here in Dublin, and we've had many nights in this on this floating boat, floating restaurant, floating bar. It's absolutely fantastic, called the Killarna. It's a great night out. The food is fantastic. You can have a meal and some drinks, and you can also go up on the deck as well. You just got to be careful you don't have too much to drink while you're on the top deck, because you might fall over and into the River Liffey. What are the brick buildings by floating restaurant? These are some of the oldest and iconic buildings and so forth. Now, they're at one time, I believe, were part of the Custom House building. Now, the Custom House is much further up the Liffey and so forth, but these were a branch, I believe, of the Custom House buildings that were not located in the main building, which is outside the building. But as I say, if you look over this side of the Liffey, that's about it that's left of the iconic old buildings here in Dublin and this part of Dublin. Everything else is all modern builds, built within the last 10, 15, 20 years. Now, from here also, folks, you can go on these fantastic boat rides along Dublin Bay. It will actually start from here and go out to some of the most beautiful villages on the north side of Howth and Malahide, and then also on the south side of Dublin, you have Dunleary, Killiney Bay, Dalkey, and what have you. It really is a fabulous, fabulous boat ride. It goes out, obviously, to the Bull Island as well. It is fantastic. Dublin Bay cruises, Dublin boat trips, Dublin Bay boat trips. Fabulous. Now, the height of the summer is where they are really busy. You can get the boat also from Howth, a beautiful north city, north north side fishing village, probably about 16 kilometres from here. You've probably seen that that little village on my tour of Holt. So you can get that boat from there all the way out to Dunleary. And you can get it from Dunleary all the way back out to Holt. So it really is cool. Spent my honeymoon in Dunleary in 1967. Wow, Diane. Very good. Excellent. Hope you had a good time. Did you stay in the Royal Marine in Dunleary? A beautiful hotel right there, the Royal Marine in Dunleary. Now have a look at this contraption that you see right in front of you, this orange thing right here. And this is known as the diving bell. And the diving bell, 6 men could fit in it, is 90 tons in weight, folks. 90 tons in weight. It was the first used in 1871 to flatten the seabed and the riverbed right here, and also to build the quay walls down by the Dublin Docklands. And this quay wall, well, one time, was the largest, what is actually known as the South Bull Wall, was the largest sea wall in the whole world at one time. It still is one of the largest, not anymore. So 6 men could fit in here, as I say, 90 tons in weight. And it was used right up until 1856. It was only in 2015 that was put here. And there was one of the great Irish engineers of all time, a guy called Blood Stoney was his name. His first name escapes me. What was his first name? Oh, anyway. What was his name? Anyway, Blood Stoney was his last name. Blood Stoney. And he was a famous Irish engineer. And it was his brainchild, the diving bell. Pretty as neat, isn't it? Pretty cool. Now, you guys want to hear a story? Anybody up for a story, folks? Let me know. I want to see some excitement. Bindon, that's it, Poppy. Bindon Blood Stoney. Thank you very much. Poppy is like an encyclopedia for me. Unbelievable the knowledge she has. And if she doesn't know something directly, she'll look it up. And she's so quick at looking this thing up. It's unbelievable. Of course, we want a story, says Hillary, Sharon, Cindy. Very quick on Google. Quick hands. Quick fingers. Not like me. When I'm looking something up, it takes me 10 minutes to find the answer to something. I'm a slow typer. So the story, folks. Here, first of all, do we have anybody from Philadelphia on here? Or even the Delaware area? Philadelphia, Delaware area. Do we have anybody on here from there? Okay, Donna from Philly. Yeah, you're going to like this story, Donna. Anybody else from Philly? Okay, Noreen, yes, from Lancaster. It's not that far. Lancaster's near Reading, Pennsylvania. Lancaster, of course, with the Amish. A lot of Amish people. Been there many times. A friend of mine owns a pub in Lancaster. And I can't think of the name of the pub at the moment. Anyway, you might know him. His name is Joe Devoy. Noreen. Lived in Philly before. Okay, so the story is about this gentleman right here in this sculptor. And his name is William Brown. Now, William Brown was born in County Mayo, a place called Foxford in County Mayo on the west coast of Ireland. When he was 9 years old, he left Annie Bailey's. Was that? Yeah, Noreen. That actually is owned by another fella that I don't really know him well, but he's a friend of Joe that owns this other place. It used to be a furniture store or something that Joe had before and turned into a bar. But yeah, Annie Bailey's is the other one. I think it's on Queen Street or something there in Lancaster. And I forget that chap's name that owns that, but he's an Irish guy. Anyway, so when he was 9 years old, William Brown and his father left Ireland to go live in, they emigrated to Philadelphia. 2 years later, when he was only 11 years old, his father dies, leaving poor old William Brown an orphan. Shortly after his father's death, he's walking down by the Delaware River and he meets a ship's captain whose merchant ship is docked in the Delaware River. And he starts talking to the ship's captain, and the ship's captain, he told him this story, and the ship's captain offered him a job as a cabin boy on this merchant ship. So off he went on this merchant ship, as a cabin boy, 20 years later, he becomes captain of this ship. He knew every little nook and cranny of this ship, knew every operation and so forth. Obviously, for 20 years working on the ship, and he becomes the captain of the ship. Now, whilst traveling across the world on this merchant ship, one day, probably about 10, 15 years later, they're docked in Buenos Aires in Argentina. And the Argentinian Navy offered William Brown a job as a Navy officer. And he accepts, and he works his way all the way to Admiral of the Fleet. He then wins the sea war against Spain for Argentinians' independence. He also was in a sea battle with Brazil, where he was outmanned or outnumbered by 31 ships to 11 and still managed to win that sea war against Brazil. He was hauled high through the streets of Buenos Aires for that victory. He is probably the most, or one of the most famous people in the history of Argentina. As I say, he became Admiral of the Fleet, the top person, commander of the fleet of the Argentinian Navy. There's 1,000 streets named after him in Argentina. There's 200 schools named after him. This guy is a cult hero, as I say, in Argentina. He was born, let me just give you some of the dates here, if I can look them up. He was born, and it says right there, he was born in 1777. So here's the plaque. I don't know if you can read it. It's not very clear, but let me zoom in here a little bit. So he was born in 1777. He died in 1857. So he's 80 when he died. Lived a good life. So how about that for a story, folks, of success for a poor orphan boy from Foxford in County Mayo, Ireland, who made it all the way to the top. Another look at the diving bell before we go, folks. Absolutely wonderful contraption and a brilliant engineering creation, if you like. As I say, to build a seawall and flatten the seabed and the riverbed right here at the Liffey as well. Pretty cool. Hope you enjoyed that story. We're going to move on, folks, and where we're going to go. Actually, this street right here is named William Brown Way. Now, in Argentina, didn't call him William. Guillermo. I hope I'm pronouncing it properly. Guillermo is the Spanish name for William. So Guillermo Brown. Admiral Guillermo Brown. Okay, we're going to make our way, folks, up to the wonderful Grand Canal Square. And this is where all the big tech companies are here in Dublin, including Facebook and Google, where their European headquarters right here in this area of town. You can see the ferryman there again. Can we see the bridge? Sure you can. Who's that? Colleen. Yes, Colleen. Here's the bridge again. Let me zoom back out a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. The Samuel Beckett Bridge, also known as the Hart Bridge, and designed by one of the greatest architects in history, Santiago Calatrava, Spanish architect. Spanish-Swiss architect, because I believe he may have grown up in Spain, but moved as a young man to Switzerland. No problem at all, Colleen. It's a nice postcard photograph. This right here is... no need for that guy flying through the streets of Dublin like that. Anyway, this is known as Cardiff Lane, and this street was named after Matthew Cardiff, who had a shipbuilding yard here up until 1850. So a lot of the ships that were used for the cargo ships, as I say, 3/4 of all cargo just down the street from here, as I showed you, leaving Ireland, leaves from that port. 3/4 of all cargo leaving. Going to places like Liverpool, going to places like Rotterdam, Antwerp, just to name a few places. This is the Clayton Hotel right here. If you've ever been to Ireland, there's a good chance you stayed in the Clayton Hotel, because it's got 34 of them throughout the country. Some of them are called the Maldrons, some of them are called Claytons. And they're owned by the Delata Group, and they are Ireland's largest hoteliers. And They were a small hotel group before the last financial crash. But they started buying up distressed hotels for pennies on the dollar during that financial crash. And now they basically have an empire of hotels, if you like, because I believe they have some in the UK as well as Ireland, 34 in Ireland and some others in the UK. And they're very comfortable hotels, very, very well run, very luxurious. They're nice, and they're a little less expensive than a lot of the big name hoteliers. Are the hotels very expensive? They are very, very expensive, Margie. Absolutely crazy, crazy expensive. But I was just saying that these guys are a little less expensive, the Clayton hotels. And they have them in great locations as well. Because they're not a Marriott or they're not a Hilton, so they don't have the big, big name. The big international name they don't have. So probably for that reason, they're cheaper. But nothing is cheap here in this country. Nothing. Especially Dublin. It is crazy expensive. We are making our way here, folks, to Grand Canal Square right here. It's a lovely part of the city. Very, very much modernised, as I say, like most of this part of the city. Even though it's a very old part of the city originally, it's very much modernised. I want to try and get across this road. Now, you're not going to believe the name of this street here, folks. Have a look at this. The name of this street here is called Misery Hill. And why is it called Misery Hill? The reason why this is called Misery Hill, because back in medieval times, up on this hill, see it's a little bit elevated, is where people that were executed on Gallows Row, which is Baggot Street today, probably about a kilometre from here, less than that. They brought their rotting bodies and hung them up here as a would-be deterrent for future criminals. Also here in medieval times, on Misery Hill, there was a makeshift leper hospital as well. And this is the reason why they call it Misery Hill. Now look what was here in Misery Hill, the headquarters of Facebook. They just moved out and they moved into a brand new building in Ballsbridge, literally like last week or the week before. They've moved out of this building, but this was their headquarters in Dublin for the last 15 years or more. Facebook, or Meta they call it now. Imagine that, right on Misery Hill. Maybe that's appropriate, I don't know. I'll let you decide. Welcome anyone who's just joined us. Good to see us all. We are here in Grand Canal Square, all part of the huge development of the Dublin Docklands here in Dublin City. You'll see a beautiful hotel right here. It's called the Marker Hotel. They have a rooftop restaurant and bar. It's a 5-star boutique hotel, absolutely beautiful. Once again, you don't have too much to drink if you're drinking at the rooftop bar and restaurant. You don't want to fall off in your drunkenness. That is what I was thinking, says Colleen. So here we are at Grand Canal Square, and you'll see these poles right here, folks. And these poles represent an urban forest. And the greenery right here represents the grass in the forest. And the poles represent the trees. They were designed by an urban architect. Her name is Martha Schwartz, also from Philadelphia. We're talking a lot about Philadelphia today, aren't we? But yeah, she's from Philadelphia. She designed many of these urban forests in big cities across the world. Now, also what's great about these poles that you see here, they illuminate at nighttime. So they light up. It looks really cool. And with the contrast of the greenery beside it, it just looks spectacular. It's fantastic. So it is a great, great idea. Now, this is the Grand Canal right here in Dublin. And this is where it ends. Grand Canal Square. This is where the Grand Canal ends. It's Ireland's largest canal. It starts in Shannon in County Clare on the west coast of Ireland. And it finishes up right here at the Grand Canal Grand Canal Square. 82 miles or 132 kilometres. This is great during the summer months because there's lots of water activities to take place here. There's water skiing. And the water skiing is not powered by a boat, but by cables. And they also have a jump there, you'll see, where people can jump over that. There's lots of kayaking. There's lots of canoeing. What what's that thing? Windsurfing, all kinds of great activities. Can you see Poolbeg Lighthouse from there? No, we can't, Kim, because it's over a bit. It's not far from here, but we can't see it from here. Actually, you can. You see the you can see the Poolbeg chimneys right there. There's the Poolbeg chimneys. Believe it or not, that's about 3 kilometers away. More than that, 5 kilometers away. They're the Poolbeg chimneys. But the lighthouse itself, we can't see the lighthouse. That's further at the end of the Poolbeg Peninsula. But there you have the chimneys there. So good question there, Kim. Water's so blue, yeah. Yeah, it looks good, doesn't it? Now, have a look at this. This right here is Ireland's largest theatre. This is the Bord Gáis Theatre. Bord Gáis means it's just a gas board. Gosh for gas in the Irish language. Bord Gáis Energy Theatre. Now, this is the largest theatre, as I say, in Ireland, but it's also larger than any theatre on Broadway in New York because it holds 2,111 people. The largest of all the theatres on Broadway in New York is the Gershwin Theatre at 1,900 people. So how about this, folks? This theatre in little old Dublin is larger than any theatre in New York City. How about that? Thank you, Laurie, for the tip. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. You have some lovely luxury apartments, obviously looking over the wonderful bay, right, or the canal right here. And if you look at these 3 apartment buildings right here, the one to my left that I'm pointing at here, the penthouse apartment at one time was owned by none other than the Edge of U2. And the second one, the penthouse at one time, was owned by none other than Colin Farrell, the great Irish actor. And the third one, at one time, the penthouse at the top, was owned by Georgia Salpa. She was an Irish-Greek supermodel, a world supermodel. Absolutely beautiful woman. Laurie, thanks very much. Linda, thank you so much. Appreciate it. And there's another look at the beautiful Marker Hotel. I was there, believe it or not, one time, this is quite an amazing story. I was at the Bord Gáis Theatre, and a friend of mine, I had 2 tickets, and a friend of mine couldn't make it at the last minute. So I had 2 tickets to go with him here. And it was a big variety show where there was tons of Irish artists and even foreign artists that were performing that day. It's probably about 4 years ago, maybe. And this lady told me, she was dying to get a ticket. She couldn't get one. She couldn't get a ticket, and she was desperate to get a ticket. And I heard her asking, could you get a ticket? No, they're all sold out, all sold out. So I heard her saying this, and I just went up to her and I said, I have a spare ticket. And I'm not kidding you, she nearly jumped on top of me, and she was so excited. I said, yeah, I'll give you the ticket, no problem. So I sat with this lady for the longest time through this whole performance. It was fantastic. And she said, let me bring you back to this hotel, the Marker, after we finished, and I'll buy you a few drinks because you gave me that ticket. And I said, okay, let's go. Now, while she was gone, she said she lived in the apartments next to it, and she had to go up to her apartment for something, right? And whilst I was gone, started talking to some of the staff, and I noticed while I was in there, all the staff were going up there. Oh, Kira was her name. Hi, Kira. Hi, Kira. Hi, Kira. Everybody's like, yeah. And it was only when I was gone, one of these people told me, this lady, she owns this hotel. So the woman that owned the hotel was the woman that I gave tickets to for that performance of, and hung out when I had a few drinks. And not only did she own this hotel, she owns probably about 6 or 7, herself and her brother own about 6, 7 hotels around Ireland. They're all absolutely phenomenal places. They own lots of property buildings, all kinds. They're called the Tetrich Group. I don't even pronounce it right. Yeah, there you go. Amazing. Just showed you. There was no airs or graces about her. But I never told that story before online when I did this tour. I've probably done this tour about maybe 12, 15 times before. I've never told that story. So we're going to make our way over here to Google Dock, if you like, Silicon Dock, Grand Canal Dock. So lots of different names. So see all the buildings over there, folks, behind what's there, the Bowling Mills. Well, they are the Google buildings here, and they own That's the whole entire street there. It's known as Barrow Street. It's owned by Google. Now, the actual street is not owned by Google, but all the buildings, 90% of all the buildings on that street are owned by Google buildings. Google employ like 8,000 people here in Dublin, one of the biggest employers, and obviously the biggest, one of the biggest companies in the world. And as I said before, they've been here a long time. Google were here way before Facebook were, probably since 2000, I'd say. And they employ, as I say, 8,000 people. They've got a great, they have a great variety of people to choose from as regards to employ, as Ireland's a very well-educated country. But there's also a lot of great foreign workers that live here in Ireland. Actually, 15% of the whole labour force here in Ireland are foreign people, making it the third most in all of Europe, which is quite extraordinary because if you go back 20, 25 years ago, we didn't even have an economy. We were a developing country. There was nothing going on here. But they all started coming here when Ireland were granted by the EU a very low corporate tax rate to attract these companies to come here to Ireland. Most of them come to Dublin, although they are in different parts of the country as well. But for the most part, they're in Dublin. And they came here because of the low corporate tax rate at 12.5%, the lowest in all of Europe. But despite us having the lowest corporate tax rate, that's not really the reason why they stayed. It's one of the reasons. But some of the other reasons is that they really like the people. We really have a very, very well-educated workforce as well. And we have the number one retention rate in the whole entire world of companies that set up and stay. So it's quite incredible. All of these, now, this is all of the buildings before they built the Google buildings would have looked like this, because this is the Boland's Flour Mills. And they date back to 1801, Boland's Flour Mills, but they closed their doors in 2001. 1802, they date back to. And all of the buildings along here would have looked like that one and that one. So I'm glad at least Google didn't tear down the whole lot of them, but kept some of them. And actually they're being used also as Google premises as well, which is pretty cool. Now, it's also amazing, the Irish economy at this present time is doing extremely, extremely well. And during the pandemic of 2020 and so forth, 2021, well, most economies crashed or did very, very bad, Ireland's actually increased by 3.4%. And the economy increased more than even China at 2.3%. And the reason for all this is because of three sectors, only three sectors. And them three sectors are big tech, pharmaceuticals, and finance, banking. Because, as I say, the world's headquarters for all these huge big banking institutions, accountants, insurance companies, big tech companies, and pharmaceutical companies, their European headquarters are all here in Dublin. And this is the reason why the economy grew. Now, that's not to say that other sectors weren't affected. Obviously, tourism, I know all about that. Kerry, thanks very much. And Kay, thank you so much. They would have all been deeply affected and so forth. But Ireland here today has such a young population. We actually have the youngest population in all of Europe, which is quite amazing. And nearly half of the country is under the age of 34 years old. And it's making it the youngest in Europe. And 1/3 are under 25. So Ireland has the highest international workforce in Europe at 15%. I said it was the third highest. I think it's the highest. Wow. And the lowest corporate tax rate. But as I said before, 25% of the whole economy is based on... Now, also, we have the highest foreign direct investment here in Ireland than any other country in Europe at 54 billion. Even more than the UK at 51 billion. The highest foreign direct investment. And as I said before, we got the highest retention rate of companies coming here to another country and staying, as they are very happy with the workforce. So right here at Grand Canal Dock, you'll see all these lovely boats and so forth. Now, rent in Dublin, because of all these big tech companies, thank you, Terry, is hugely expensive, absolutely massively expensive. So this is a good alternative is to live on the water, on the Grand Canal, in these boats. But if you want to try and get space in here, folks, you'd have to hope that it would have to happen only if someone died and didn't have any siblings to leave their space, because these are so difficult to get. They range from probably about 50,000 to 250,000, these boats, but very livable. And in the long run, you'd save yourself a lot of money on rent, because to buy a home, any decent sized home here in Dublin, just an average home, not even a nice home, will cost you about $500,000. And if you want to get any kind of a decent home to buy here in this country, it's way over €1,000,000. But there's none to be bought. It's all a huge amount. It's all about supply and demand. Huge demand, not only to buy properties, but even to rent. And there's very little supply and huge demand. All done by design, folks, so landlords can make exceptional amounts of money. And the government officials, most of them and their families are all landlords, although they deny it themselves. But anyway, what can you do? Social housing is a big problem here in this country. The government always promises that they're going to build 20,000 more social houses per year. And at the end of that year, they would have only built 1,000. Same excuse every year. Oh, we're going to build 40,000 instead next year because of missing out on last year. But once again, at the end of the year, it'll be probably 2,000 they'll have built. And this is the reason why rental properties are so high, and also to buy. What's also quite extraordinary is that people with really good paying jobs working for these big tech companies or banking institutions, people in their late 20s, in their 30s, even early 40s, for the first time in Irish history, this generation can't afford to buy homes, despite them making maybe 100 grand a year or more, because you have to put 20% down. Any decent house, as I said before, is going to cost you at least 500 to $1,000,000. Even at 500,000 for an average house, probably below average house, it would cost you 100 grand to put down. You have to put 20% down. Who can afford that? Folks, that's all I got for you for this tour today of the Dublin Docklands. I hope you enjoyed it. Hope you had a good time. Thank you so much. Same thing in Silicon Valley, California, San Francisco, San Jose, yeah. Yeah. Let me just read some of the... Thank you, Kim. Just dropped into tip. Got it. Thank you, Mickey. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. Joined. Where are the brick buildings? Oh, guys, sorry. That was just that's gone way back. I don't think... What happens to your tours after... Okay, great question, Deanne. So... I'm going to be part of what's happening with John Wright and all what's going on there. Hopefully we'll still continue to be able to live stream. But I'm also, myself, Hazel, and Janet right here in Ireland, we're setting something up ourselves where we're going to do strictly Irish tours. Maybe through Zoom, or we'll find another way, YouTube or what have you. Thanks, Gail. Appreciate it. Thanks, Paddy. Also, I'm already on... Airbnb. So I do a lot of walking tours for Airbnb. I was going to, they have a virtual platform there as well, and I was going to do tours with them before, but then I got busy doing Hago and loads of other platforms, so I just really didn't have the time to do any extra tours on Airbnb. But now, because Hago's gone, I'm going to be doing tours on Airbnb. I haven't set it up yet, but I'm going to be doing some virtual tours. As I say, I already do a lot of walking tours around Dublin City for them. And so why not do the virtual tours on Airbnb as well? Now, in the long run, and when I say the long run, not in the too distant future, I'd like to set something up for myself as regards virtual tours, because, you know, I've always run businesses. So I have my own business now, Dublin Rogues Tour. You may know about that. I'll put my card in here, folks, because there you go. Thank you, JV. Thank you. Yes, please follow my YouTube, because in order for me to do YouTube, thanks, JV, I need to get 1,000 subscribers. Right now I have like 470 or something like that. Now what happened was they cancelled a whole bunch of people that subscribed. YouTube did. And the reason why they do this is because if you are not engaging and you're just subscribing, they look at that as spam. So in order for it to be realistic and to be realistic with subscribers, they expect people to watch. So you need to watch some of my videos for at least 3 minutes, and then subscribe. Otherwise, you won't be accepted. I went down on numbers from on Saturday. I had 480 subscribers, and I looked at it this morning. I could not believe it. I had 438, so I lost nearly 50. Well, 40 something. Yeah, 50 subscribers I lost overnight. And the reason for it, as I said, folks, is if you do subscribe to my channel, you have to watch a video. I got 77 videos on there. Some of them are shorter than 3 minutes. So look for some of the ones that are 3 minutes or more and watch it and then subscribe. Otherwise, I won't be able to live stream through YouTube. I don't have that much time left as regards before Hago closes. And I'd like to do live stream on YouTube right away. But yeah, so subscribe to today's YouTube. What's that? Hold on a second. Start playing one of his videos. Then feel free. If anybody wants to put in one of my videos, I actually put them on Facebook Voyagers today. I put in the some of the videos for you to watch. You can also stream. It includes you. Yeah, I have Buy Me a Coffee on YouTube as well, but I haven't implemented it on too many of the videos. Just subscribe and we'll watch today. Just subscribe. Okay, Sahara. Now, if you are subscribing, you'll probably won't be counted, Sahara, unless you watch one of the videos first. You have to engage first. So you have to watch one of my videos for at least 3 minutes, and then you subscribe. If you just go there and just subscribe, it's not going to count. I didn't know any of this, but I found out the hard way. You have to engage first. Thank you, Poppy. Poppy's at the my YouTube channel. Once you press on that, folks, you have to watch one of my tours before you subscribe. Otherwise, it will not be counted, as I said before. Thank you so much, Poppy, for putting that in there. Now, tomorrow, folks, the very first tour I ever did on, here you go, on the 9th of March, 2021, so over 2 years ago, the very, very first tour I did was Ancient Dublin, taking in the oldest part of Dublin. I've done it probably about 25, 30 times on the Hago platform. It is still to this day, I have something like 85, 90 tours on the Hago platform that I've done. And still to this day, probably my most popular tour is still the very first one that I ever did. Ancient Dublin, highlights of Ancient Dublin. And I guess the reason for it is because it takes in the oldest part of Dublin and takes in some of the most breathtaking cathedrals, not just in Dublin, but anywhere in the world. That's St. Patrick's Cathedral, dating back to 1191. Then also Christchurch Cathedral, dating back to 1169, 1170. Also, we go to the oldest street. Everything is ancient. Everything is old. So we go through the cobblestone street to Dublin. We go down to Fishamble Street, the oldest street in Dublin. We show you Marsh's Library, the oldest library in Ireland, dating back to 1707. We'll actually go in there. We'll actually go into St. Patrick's Cathedral. We'll show you even the oldest fish and chip shop in Dublin as well, Leo Burdock's. So lots of ancient stuff. We also tell the story of Viking Dublin. So we're going to be traveling around Viking Dublin, where the very first Viking settlement was in Dublin at Wood Quay. So we tell the story of the Vikings in Ireland. This is probably the reason why it's been so popular. It's on again tomorrow. Oh, thank you, Joyce. 489 subscribers right now. Great. So I'm gone back up. Now, I would have had over 500 if I didn't lose so many. But that's great. Thank you so much. Appreciate that. Thanks, Laurie. Yeah, come to Ireland. You'll have a great time. Great stuff. Also, I'm missing some of these. Thank you, Noreen. She signed up for Dublin tomorrow. Okay, great. Can you already stream? What's that, Dee? Can you also stream? Just include your PayPal. Buy me a coffee. Yeah, I have that on my YouTube. And I don't know if I implemented into any of my... I have another Buy Me a Coffee on a tour I did of Dublin for a company called... This is before Hago ever started. It was for a company called Free Tours by Foot. You can watch it if you like. Just put it in Dublin. It's called Free Tours by Foot. Dublin, I think it's 46 minutes long. I got over 20,000 views on it. And it's free to watch it. But I do have Buy Me a Coffee on that particular video. So look out for it. Just put in Dublin and you see the Dublin tours come up. It's Free Tours by Foot. It's called Free Tours by Foot. And you'll see me on there on a 46-minute tour of Dublin City. You know? I forgot I had. Oh, do I have any at night time? I don't. You know the famine ship. I forgot to show you some of these photographs of the famine ship that were at earlier. That's downstairs. Maybe I don't have too much. I should have put some of these at night time in here. That's when it gets dark. The Samuel Beckett Bridge. Folks, I'm going on and on. I can't stop myself. Tell me to leave, will you, please? I can't control myself. I'm always talking. So I hope to see you tomorrow. Thanks so much for everybody that joined today. And I hope you had a good time. I'm going to leave you with a nice view of... I'm going to cross the road here, folks, and show you a nice view of, from a different angle, of the Grand Canal Square. If I can get across this road, because, as I say, it's busy at this time. So it might be difficult to get across the road. Let's see what we got here, folks. Thanks, Poppy. Appreciate it. Thank you so much. That's a nice little view right there. But I want to show you the view across the road. Okay. This makes a nice postcard photograph. What do you think, folks? So, as I say, tomorrow, ancient Dublin, 3 p.m. Irish time, 10 a.m. North American time on the East Coast, probably 7 a.m. on the West Coast of Canada and the United States. And then at 4:30 p.m. Irish time on Wednesday, we're going to be going visiting the beautiful St. Stephen's Green, one of the most beautiful parks of any city in the world, of any city park in the world. Absolutely stunning. It's beautiful. Thanks very much, Poppy. Poppy's at the putting that in there. 7 a.m. San Diego. Yeah. San Diego, West Coast time. So we leave you with this scene right here of the beautiful Grand Canal Square. I am, Suzanne. Suzanne, I am. I'm doing that on Monday. I'm doing 2 tours of Paris Court on Monday. I'm doing an interview with Rosemary first, and she's going to show us all on the plants. And then, there you go, Poppy's at the putting it in. And then I'm actually going to be doing, after that, I'm going to be doing the regular Paris Court tour. So I am. Monday. Sign up for that, folks. Poppy's at the putting it in there. A chat with Rosemary. Rosemary's one of the great... and then Poppy's at the putting the other one in there as well. So 2 tours in Paris Court come Monday. They will be my 2 last tours on the Hago platform until we meet again on another platform or another medium, as they say. Thanks, Joyce. So there you go. Poppy's great at putting in all these links, so really appreciate it, Poppy. Check out Poppy's Instagram page, folks. Put it in there, Poppy. Poppy does the most unbelievable reviews and has a fantastic Instagram page where she gives an absolutely beautiful write-up for all the tour guides, for all the tours that she goes on, along with some lovely postcard photographs as well. There you go. Laura's thanking you. Thank you. So there you go, folks. There's Poppy's Instagram page. She deserves so many more followers on there. So please follow her. She does some absolutely amazing reviews, and she's a brilliant writer. And she's got lovely postcard photographs on Instagram. So please check her out, folks. I'll do any kind of tours, Angie. Private tours, sure. Any kind. You can do private tours on Zoom. I've done many of them before. I've done a good few private tours on Hago for mostly nursing homes in the US and the UK as well. Guys, that's all I got for you. Take care, folks. Slán Litagus Greva Mila Mahagod. It's an hour into a 40-minute show. Take care, folks. We'll see you tomorrow. Slánte.